happens, it's all good.
Okay, we're back on, and this is the Dave Emmons show, and I have L.A. Marzulli here, and he is got a fantastic background and everything. I mean, he's we're talking about a certain thing about ancient biblical text and things of this nature right now, but he can go beyond that. The Nephilim, he's written a lot of books about the Nephilim, and he's into other things like UFOs and ETs. WLDY Radio, and that's Odyssey Radio .live. We're syndicated through that. LA, Missouri, take us from there and talk to us about Jesus. We're just talking about that off air.
Yeah, when I accepted him, I was reading Dave Hunt's book. It's a little goofy prayer at the end, and I mean, I said it, nothing happened. About a month later, everything changed. Everything happened. The woman I was living with fled the house. She was terrified. I was being dragged out of the kingdom of darkness. And remember, I was completely immersed in the occult. So as I'm being pulled, they don't want to let me loose. They did not want to let me go. And it was spiritual warfare. I was in boot camp, Dave, for about 3 years, spiritual boot camp for 3 years. In fact, the pastor and I was counseling with twice a week remarked to me he had never seen anyone go through something as severe as I was going through it. He didn't understand why. Looking back at it now, where I've been, what I do for a living or a ministry, whatever you want to call it, I go down, I do some pretty deep dives and do things like DNA on the Paracas elongated skulls. Our team was one of the only teams that actually got the elongated skulls and did the DNA testing. Brian Forrester had another team go down from Gaia, but they kind of cut Brian out of the pie, which is really unfortunate. But they got nuclear DNA, and the nuclear DNA was unknown primate. We don't know what this is. That fits my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
If you don't know what the nuclear DNA is, and it's not in your gen bank, then it solidifies my hypothesis that that skull right there is a Nephilim. It's sired by a fallen angel, a watcher.
Right.
So of course Gaia spins it into the whole extraterrestrial thing.
Right.
From
The
Zeta
book,
Reticuli or whatever. Of course they do.
Yeah, the Book of Enoch really confuses me. I mean, I've been through it for the research, what I'm doing, and it actually goes back and forth, and it'll tell you that the angels didn't eat, they didn't drink like us humans did, and then all of a sudden you see another paragraph that says yes, they did, and then they went into women, they were fallen angels, and the offspring were the Nephilim, and the Nephilim. They were all over the world, apparently, Central America, South America. And you just come from a travel, I guess, doing some traveling and doing some investigations, right?
It's everywhere. And there's a Western migration. When Joshua, as I said earlier, when Joshua and Caleb pressed the conquest of the Levant, it's genocide. Let me cough. Hold on.
Okay. Don't blame me about that. I've had that cough myself, and I still a little cracky in the throat. But yeah, this all sounds so interesting, but it's so confusing to a lot of people. And like we were talking about, if you're a true Christian and you go to church and you read the Bible, you take it for what it's worth, but you don't look into it and cut up the in between lines and find out the dates and the research on it. There's a science, and then there's the Bible, and then there's people who are I guess fundamentalists, in which it's all good. I mean, if you're a good person, it's all good, right?
Well, I mean, what is a good person? Let's define what a good person is. They don't exist because everybody in some way is broken. I mean, if you've never gotten angry, never lied, never had a lustful thought, then we can talk about it.
Yeah.
But human beings, we are what we are, and we're all in this fallen, broken nature, right. Every one of us. And the whole idea of redemption is, you see, this is where it gets deep. When Adam and Eve sided with the dragon, they lost their initial covering. They lost their DNA that they were pure. They were perfect. They lost all that. They fell. And they sided with the dragon and took on his nature. Well, just a couple of verses later, Cain kills Abel, your first murder, right? I
Mm.
mean, what the heck is that about? And so we see this whole sliding into the kingdom of darkness. But that prophecy in Genesis 3:15, your offspring will be at war and enmity with the offspring of the woman. The woman, you talked about this earlier, is foreshadowed by the Spirit of a living God, and that creates genetic information in her womb, which becomes Messiah for those of us who believe that. But if it wasn't him, then who the heck was it? Because there's another prophecy that says, in the book of Daniel again, seal
Right.
that book up, Daniel.
That book
The
is,
book of
yeah.
Daniel, it says this: from the time of the decree to rebuild the temple until Shiloh or the Messiah comes will be so many years. 70 times 7. So it's like 490 years, right?
Right.
So guess what? We have a decree. It's in the British Museum. We have the stele, the decree from Cyrus telling us, telling the Jews, go rebuild the temple. We know the exact date. So if you count from that date and you go 490 years, right? Guess who shows up in the streets of Jerusalem? I mean, and Chuck Missler used to say this: it's the only time in Jesus's entire ministry where he actually arranges something. He tells the disciple, and this is how wacky the Bible is, the guidebook of a supernatural. Bible just means book. So get this: you're hanging out with Jesus, right? And you're not really sure what's going on, but you've seen blind people, their eyes open up, the deaf hear, people who've been crippled all their lives, they're walking around. You're kind of going like, and then you're this guy Lazarus who was dead for 3 days. Jesus calls him out. You're saying to yourself, something's going on here. I'm not sure what this guy is, but something's going on. So then the day comes. You don't know it's the day. And Jesus tells you, okay, that's what I want you to do. Go into town, go into Jerusalem. You're going to see a colt that's never been ridden. Okay, untie the colt and bring it to me. It's like, what? And then he goes, and when the owner comes out and says, hey, what are you guys doing? Just say the master has need of it. Okay, so you and I, Dave, we've been tasked with this assignment, right? Well, let me bring it into the modern era. It would be like someone telling us, hey, LA and Dave, go down to the 7-Eleven store. You're going to see a Lexus with the keys in it, all right? And the motor running. When you go and open the door and get him a Lexus and bring it to me because I need it, the owner's going to come out and he's going to say, hey, what are you doing with my Lexus? You're just going to say, no worries, the master has need of it. And he's going to let you go. That's how completely off the wall that statement is.
Yeah.
Guess
Well, nowadays the judges will let you go.
what? You know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Can't marginalize it.
Right.
So they get the colt, they bring him back. Jesus rides into Jerusalem. It's the triumphal entry. They throw down the palm leaves, the whole deal. They don't understand what's going on. Nobody understands what's going on. They don't even understand their own prophecies.
What
They
about
don't
Judah?
understand.
What about Judah? Did he play the role as Judas? Did he play the role of a bad guy?
Well, Satan entered into him. It says that. It's the only time all through Scripture where the actual dragon possesses a human being. It's the only time.
Really?
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
about the Ark of the Golden Covenant? I know we talked about Moses and the Nephilim in the Promised Land. What was the Ark of the Golden Covenant?
Well, it's not Golden Covenant. It's just the Ark of the Covenant.
You're right.
And the bottom line with the Ark is there is technology that we don't understand. It's supernatural technology.
Mm-hmm.
So something is going on with the Ark. Scientists have looked at it and said it's a transmitter, it's this or that. The Ark is the dwelling place of the Spirit of a living God. The second temple that was built did not have the Ark. The first temple had the Ark. And when Solomon and the crew dedicated the temple, the Spirit of a living God descended on that temple. Everyone fell flat on their face. I mean, that's what happens. All right. Mm-hmm. So the Babylonians come, they raid the temple, they destroy everything, but they didn't get the Ark. The Ark was spirited away. We haven't seen the Ark since then. So there's a scripture which talks about the ark maybe coming from Ethiopia, just a possibility. Not saying it is, but there's a possibility. There's the other possibility is that the Jews have already found the ark underneath the Temple Mount where it was secreted away, but they can't say anything about it or all hell's going to break loose.
Really?
Which is true.
Yeah.
So it gets very deep.
Yeah. I've been looking at all these things about angels and watchers, and it's very confusing. Like you said a while ago, there's a lot of these entities are invisible, and so are ETs. So are spirits and ghosts and poltergeists. They're all from a dimensional type plane, right?
Well, the watcher and the angels, there's a term that my friend, the late Russ Dizdar, used to say, menace where the angel has the ability to shapeshift, to transform into basically anything they want. Male, female, old, young, anything. They can just, boom, here they are. A mantis being, I mean, that's just what they do. The grays are biological suits to house the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, which were destroyed in the flood.
Really? I never thought of that way. They're harboring the spirits of the Nephilim. So the Nephilim are really key to a lot of our history, from what you're saying, and
they are, Dave. They are the remnants of it go from Cyprus to Greece to Gozo to Malta to Sardinia, all over Italy, to Mallorca to Spain, over to Portugal, into France, into the UK, and over here. It's absolutely everywhere.
Now this,
it's everywhere.
This film in this UFO film that you just did, you got it 2 parts are going to be free. The third part's going to be, I guess, ticketed, whatever. But what was the most interesting thing? You can sum that up. The most interesting thing you saw or recorded
on the UFO film?
Yes, yes.
For number 3, well, that's tough. There's a lot of stories, a lot of witnesses that come on the record. Yeah, there's one story. This girl, she is with a friend. They're in a car, and they see this UFO materialize. She says it's like pixelated, and then it comes into focus. She's down here in the car. She gets out. She begins to be abducted. She's like 6 feet in the air. And she cries out to Jesus, and it stops. The thing flies away. She said it took off. We've heard all this before. In a blink of an eye, it's gone.
Right.
In a blink of an eye. That was a pretty riveting testimony. But the testimonies, I think one of the things that really blew me away, we lost our house in the 2018 Woolsey fire. Fire came through, about 1,800 homes were destroyed all throughout Southern California. Ours was one of them. And when we got up here, it was just like, whoa. So our neighbor lives about, as the crow flies, about a half a mile away. And she's out, she's higher than we are. We're down here and she's up here on a different part of the mountain. And she just takes a snapshot, click, the day of the fire. About a month later, she lost her home, the whole deal. She's looking at the pictures and she goes, oh my gosh, what's this? Well, essentially directly over my house is a UFO. The day of the fire.
Oh, during the fire or the day of the fire?
The day of the fire, before the fire came through.
All right.
There's a UFO directly over my house.
I heard that they were shooting down beams, and I don't know. I'd like to ask you also, since you know a little bit about all these various topics, are humans involved, are military involved in abductions?
Absolutely. Of course they are. Yeah, they are. They're part and parcel of it, which is why it's a total joke when Congress gets together and we need answers and blah, 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 blah. The deep state controls the country. They don't care who's elected. They could care less who's in the White House. Makes no difference to them. They work on black ops, black budgets. They're accountable to nobody. And until that changes in this country, there are 2 countries. There's the country that the news media tells us what it is,
right?
This other nonsense, and there's the dark ops, the black ops, the hidden agendas that are really moving and directing the country.
So
Because there is an
yeah.
agenda.
So the deep state and the cabal, I know I have another guy that I talk to. We do a show on that. But are there ETs involved in some of this stuff? Are they at the top of the political ladders and top of the banking ladders?
Conjecture, but they have integrated. They can shapeshift. We
Right.
had a man on my show. It's a show that we do on YouTube. We do On the Trail of Nephilim, we do UFO update, and we do supernatural confrontations. That's the latest show. So we drop politics, prophecy, and supernatural. It's time to step down from that. Why poke the bear in this environment?
Yeah.
So with supernatural confrontations, there was a gentleman who came on the record, and he's at a fast food store. You know, the drive-up lane, you place your order in window 1, 5 minutes later in window 2, you get your order, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's in the driver's seat. His friend's in the passenger seat. Pull up to the window, and he reaches out, gets the bag, and goes like this. Hands the bag to his friend. Looks back, and the woman who is there, half her face is completely changed. This side was like translucent, no hair, bald, and completely different face. And she realized that she had uncloaked unwillingly. She goes like this and runs from the window.
Really? That's
walking
yeah,
amongst us.
yes, I know they are. I saw one young lady, LA, at a nightclub one night, and she was kind of pursuing me, and I couldn't tell why, because I'm old and ugly, you know. And I thought this had happened 10 years ago, but she turned to me, and her eyes had a green slit like a lizard eye, and
There you go.
I froze. I just said, "Wow," you know. So I guess because she had an interest, is because I've had implants, and I guess my DNA shines a little bit from the implants. You might know a little bit more about that. It sounds like you've got a well-rounded, you know, information and knowledge about all these things, how they connect.
Well, our team was the only Christian team ever to take out an implant. A man's name was Bill. In the film, his name is Emil, and he was abducted. So I actually interviewed Emil right here in my studio for this is number 4 in the UFO film series because it's on abductions.
Mm-hmm.
So I interviewed Emil. We took out the implant from Emil, and that was intense, but we took it out. And you know, depending on where your implant is, it can be surgically removed. But you know, that was a pretty intense day.
Yeah. What did the implant look like? Was it like natural carbon based, or was it metal, or what?
It was metallic. It was about the size of a grain of rice. Okay. There was no entry wound at all. How does that work? Just like when the cattle mutilations happen and they take the heart out of a cow or a bull and the pericardium is still intact. How's that possible? Because the pericardium is the sac which surrounds the heart.
Right.
That's still intact. You can't do that. Wow. So they manipulate space, time, matter, and energy in ways that we don't know.
Yeah. I know that they're coming here dimensionally, and I know there's 3 forms of abductions. They can do a bedside, I guess, physical. They can take you physically in the ship and beam you up, or they can take your soul, your consciousness, and your mind, and they can take that and take it to another dimension. And that's where I've had some experience in that, where you freeze. You actually are freezing, you know, and you wake up and you're frozen like you're dead. But I guess they're taking all your energy and they're taking another dimension. But I have no regressed memories of those. But those are the ways that I think of, you know, that of abductions. But you've got a couple of books that I guess we need to talk about, just comment about that you've had on the side there. You want to talk about those, your 2 new ones?
Well, this is number 13. You know, how the Nephilim returned after the flood. counter move. And I mean, there it is. And it's we've got a lot of Dr. Mark Kahn, Pastor Mondo Gonzalez, Dr. Ken Johnson, Dr. Douglas Hamp. Son Allison also wrote a chapter. So it's a combination book in some ways, different authors. But the bottom line is this: the Nephilim returned. And it's just amazing. Some of these people.
I heard the Nephilim, they hijacked Noah's Ark. One of them, they were one of Noah's children, and the reptilian, I guess, made a baby, and it was a boy. So it went on to, I guess, to reproduce. It was hijacked on Noah's Ark. Is that just a fantasy story, or is
Yeah,
this
that's a fantasy story.
really?
And
Okay.
what happened was, all those stories, Og held on to the ark and all this crazy stuff. But the watchers came back the second time and the third time and the fourth time. And they took wives. I mean, it's right there. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward, when the fallen angels, right? I'm paraphrasing.
Right.
When the Nehel Elohim, the sons of God, saw the woman and went into them, these were the great men of renown. It's amazing how many people tap dance around that, even within Christian circles. Well, angels can't reproduce.
Yeah.
Well, then whose seed are we talking about in Genesis 3:15? You got to start there. And you can, people, Genesis 3:15 is the key to the rest of the biblical prophetic narrative. Unless a person understands that it's a seed war, it's between the offspring of the dragon and the offspring of the woman. The offspring of the woman eventually becomes Messiah, but the offspring of the dragon happens 3 chapters later. This is why when Abraham is finally tapped out, when the pre-incarnate Christ appears to Abraham and goes, out of your seed, all the nations of earth will be blessed. That's it. He's talking about Messiah, Mashiach, going to come from Abraham's loins. Abraham's childless at this point.
Right.
Sarah's barren, for crying out loud.
And they're both elderly. Yeah.
They're 90.
90. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Why is it that Pharaoh wants to sleep with Sarah? Why is that? If she's 90 years old, she's not beautiful. She's not good looking. She's a hag. She's old. She's wrinkled. So why does Pharaoh want to have a relationship with Sarah? Because the Most High God, El Shaddai, has sent them back in time, as it were, rejuvenated them, reversed the aging process. That's conjecture. It's not there in the text. I first heard that from Dr. Chuck Missler years ago, and it makes perfect sense. The God of the Bible, the creator of the entire universe, we put him in this little box. Well, he can only do something. No, yeah. If he wants to turn Abraham into a turtle, he can go do that. Right. If he wants to make a donkey talk, he can go do that. If he wants to rain fire and brimstone down on Sodom and Gomorrah, why? Not because he's this vengeful, maniacal, capricious, murderous God. No, the Nephilim are there. The Nephilim are in Sodom and Gomorrah. It talks about it very clearly in the book of Jude.
Now, I like it the way when you said we put God in a little box, and I think a lot of people do, and I think God is way beyond our comprehension. Look how many universes that they said we have. 11 universes, parallel universes, and God's in control of all this on the outside, and all these little bitty specks of our planets, and he's in charge of all that. But it's we just I think we belittle the size of God and what he does. Yeah,
I would agree.
Yeah, I know that little box that you put in your fingers. That just sent a message to me. Like, yes, I know. It's yeah. You had another book there that you were working on. That's or you got completed. That's about UFO disclosure, right?
Yeah, this is the UFO disclosure book. It was written in it came out in 2018 because, you can see it, the 70-year-old cover-up exposed. This is right after Commander David Fravor went on Tucker Carlson show, and it was Tucker, Commander David Fravor, and over here, the third panel of the triptych was now the infamous tic-tac shaped UFO, which Commander David Fravor had in his F-18 gun sights. And that's the footage that we see where the thing just shoots away from him. So, you know, when Tucker asked Fravor, Commander David Fravor, well, what in your opinion was this? Fravor looks right at the camera and says, whatever this was not of this earth.
Right. Right.
So I fell out of my chair. I'll give you an idea of what's in the book.
You've been on quite a few shows yourself, I think, talking about this and other things and other topics.
Oh God, yes.
Yes.
Chapter 1, Tucker Carlson's UFO disclosure, 2017. New information from Roswell, New Mexico. The ongoing abduction phenomena. Do the 1 billion abortions worldwide have something to do with what we're seeing? What people don't understand is the life is in the blood. You know, you can stand up and yell and scream all you want. Most people have never seen what an aborted baby looks like. When they go in and they just rip the thing apart. Blood is shed. The life is in the blood. Satanic ritual is always about the blood.
Yeah.
So you can say, well, LA, you know, that's not really a satanic ritual, blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
Really? 1 billion of them? A billion people looks like this. We've lost 1 billion babies since Roe v. Wade. So if I go to the North Pole, to Nome, Alaska, to New York City, to Los Angeles, to Mexico City, down all the way through South America, down to Tierra del Fuego, I don't see one person, not one person. That's what 1 billion people look like. From the North Pole to Tierra del Fuego, nobody's there, not one person.
One last question.
Go ahead.
Why are certain people abducted and other people aren't?
Genetic material. Certain people have a genetic strain that they want for whatever reason to create the hybrids. Because you'll notice that they're always like the black-eyed children, I believe, are early hybrids, hubrids that look like kids, but they got the black eyes, so we can't use them. But the modern day ones, the ones that most people encounter, can basically pass. They can pass as human, but they're not human.
Right. They do walk amongst us. Well, this ends the show, LA. And I thank you very much for being here. This is Dave Emmons show, and it's WODY syndicated. Eddie is the buddy there, and he's got Odyssey Radio.live, and so you can hear it audio. And I'll have the video up on YouTube, Rumble, and also Facebook. LA Marzulli, thank you so much for being here, and I really appreciate having you on. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
God bless you.
You
Take
too.
care.
Bye-bye.